This is a PC that I just built that features one of my favorite computer cases of all time, the Cooler Master HAF XB Evo LAN box. It's an older case that released back in 2012, but man, building in it more than a decade after it came out, I think it still holds up very well, and so does my buddy David from the LAN Party Story series, who this build is actually for. His current PC actually uses this case already, but he was in the market for a complete new build and asked if I could put together something for him using this again, so that he would have two of these things sitting in his house. His current rig has an Intel i7-6700K in it and a GTX 970, so he's been long overdue for an upgrade. His budget for this was in the range of $1,200 to $1,500, and he requested that I used only brand new parts, and I told him, sure, if that's what you want, it'll be a little bit more expensive than if we mixed in some used parts here and there, but he was okay with that, so I put on my deal hunting hat and put together the best value system I could based on his requests. This is what I came up with, so let's go over everything inside right after this. This video is brought to you by KTC and their Q24T09 monitor, designed specifically for gamers with affordability in mind. There are a lot of unknown brands when it comes to monitors. It seems like there's always a new one popping up when you look online, but KTC is not just any brand that came out of nowhere. They've been behind the scenes in the display industry for nearly 30 years, manufacturing panels for some of the biggest brands out there, such as Samsung and ViewSonic. In the last few years, they started selling gaming monitors under their own brand with the mission of offering high quality products at better prices than the competition, and that's exactly what this does. The Q24T09 is a 24-inch 2560 by 1440p fast IPS panel with a 180Hz refresh rate. It has adaptive sync, so regardless of your graphics card brand, whether Nvidia, AMD, or Intel, you won't have to worry about screen tearing. This has a Bezel 100 by 100 mounting pattern, so you're free to use it with monitor arms or any specific monitor stand you want, though the one that comes included is a nice and heavy metal plate with a small footprint and is simple to install out of the box, requiring just a single screw for quick assembly. The screen has a matte finish, so no worries about fingerprints and reflections, all while still displaying rich and vibrant colors wrapped in a thin bezel. Specs aside though, low-key one of my favorite features of this is the joystick controller built in to navigate the settings menu. If you've ever used a multi-button control layout on the back side of a monitor before, you'll know how annoying it gets. Quad HD high refresh rate gaming is made affordable with the KTC Q24T09. To learn more, check out the links in the description. Thanks KTC for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to it. Starting off, we have the CPU, the Ryzen 5 7500F. This is a tray unit, aka an OEM unit that I got from AliExpress, and as a reminder, that means no cooler or warranty, but in exchange, you get a decent discount. These are often 120 to 125 bucks on there. David actually first asked me about the 9800X3D because he heard it was the best gaming CPU on the market. But given the budget that he had and the lack of supply of the 9800X3Ds as well as the 7800X3D, I advised him to get this for the time being just to get him onto the AM5 platform. It'll perform well for him given that he'll be playing mostly at 1440p and in most games will be bottlenecked by the graphics card. But down the road when he outgrows it, he'll have the option to pop in a 9800X3D or even better, which by then hopefully supply isn't an issue anymore and the price will have gone down. For the motherboard, we have the MSI B650 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi. I usually don't have strong preferences for motherboards or brands, so long as it's not a bottom of the barrel part with poor cooling and I/O. This one happened to have a pretty decent promo code from Newegg during Black Friday that brought it down to $140, so I pulled the trigger on it. This is a middle of the road offering from MSI, nothing super fancy about it, but David's a pretty simple guy that doesn't really care to tinker with his PC, and the baseline specs of the B650 chipset are more than enough for him, so price was a priority here. Cooling the 7500F will be the Thermalright Phantom Spirit, a dual tower, dual fan, 7 heat pipe cooler that goes for less than 40 bucks on Amazon. This will have plenty of cooling performance for the 7500F, and you could even say that it's a bit overkill because a single fan, single tower cooler would have just worked fine, but we're talking about a sub $40 cooler here on a build over $1,000. Spending a little extra to push the temps down a little bit more, as well as giving you the ability to run the fans pretty much at minimal speed to reduce fan noise, is worth it in my opinion. Graphics card wise, this build has an MSI Ventus 3X RTX 4070 Super. I asked David what his preferences were between Nvidia and AMD, and he chose Nvidia. As I always do, I told him the pros and cons between Team Red and Team Green. There was no Team Blue graphics card that was at the performance level and at the price range that he was willing to spend, so it was mainly between Team Red and Team Green, and after being informed, he still preferred Nvidia, so like any normal person would do, I respected his decision and I looked for the best Nvidia card I could get get him. It was originally going to be something around the RTX 4070 performance wise, not the Super, because with tax considered, we were running up to his limit after locking in most of the other non-negotiable parts. But last minute, I was able to get a back alley deal on this for $525 out the door, brand new. This is not a standard price. These cards usually go for about $100 more than that new, and you can't even get a used one on eBay for this cheap because they're not really that old yet where they've depreciated enough, and there's a good enough demand to keep their prices kind of high. But my friend and fellow content creator Jason Whitmer was able to find a crazy deal and pass it along my way because he knew I was in the market for one. So I paid him for it, as well as a little finder's fee, which is baked into that $525 price. Also, Jason, this is me putting you in the video because I lost that bet where the punishment was to put you in a video. So I've kept my end of the bargain. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because that's the main reason the price was so good on this. But I'll discuss later on in the price breakdown on how to fit a 4070 Super into this build without a crazy deal. This build has 32 gigs of memory with this kit of Team Group T-Crate Expert rated at 6,000 mega transfers per second CL30. This is the first time I've used these. I typically go for Delta RGBs from Team Group because I'm usually doing builds that have a side window and RGB fans and other components. So I usually get the RGB ones to match. But since we're not doing that here, these work perfectly. They're very sleek, especially if you're doing an RGB-less build or if you've got like a black and gold or black and bronze themed build going. The little accents on them look really nice, and they're always competitively priced as well. For storage, this build is starting off with a 2TB Team Group Cardea A440 SSD. This is a high performance Gen 4 drive with sequential and read-write speeds of 7,000 and 6,900 megabytes per second respectively. And the reason we spent a little bit more to get 2 terabytes instead of 1 terabyte is because David isn't transferring any of his old drives into this new build. He's keeping the other build as is, so we wanted to start him off with plenty of space and not have to worry about storage for a while. Powering this system is the Cooler Master MWE Gold V3 850 watt ATX 3.1. 850 watts is a bit much for only a 7500F and 4070 Super, but being a quality unit with a 10-year warranty and on the newest ATX 3.1 standard, it can be used for multiple upgrade cycles for years to come. This was a pretty good deal during Black Friday at 85 bucks, so no biggie sizing up a bit when the price is right. And last but not least, we have the case, the Cooler Master HAF XB Evo LAN box. I'm not joking when I say that this is one of my favorite cases of all time. If you've been watching my content over the years, you'll likely have seen me reference or talk about this in videos and streams multiple times, and that's because it's one of the most unique cases that I've ever built in. Like I said at the start of the video, this released back in 2012 and I built my personal system in it at the time. These are the only photos I have of it, unfortunately. I did not document my PC building journey back then nearly as much as I do now having a YouTube channel. But I instantly fell in love with this case for the same reasons that I'm still obsessed with certain cases today when it comes to design elements. It has nice rugged sturdy handles, perfect for transporting to LAN parties or for whatever other reason you need to pick up your PC. Cubish shape and a dual chamber layout. Given its size, it has a ton of room to work in, and the motherboard lays horizontal, making it a breeze to build in. Airflow in this thing is great. The HAF in HAF XB stands for high airflow, and this case does not disappoint with how much ventilation it has on all the sides. It has a lot of room for expandability as well, with two hot swap 3.5-inch drive sleds that can be pre-routed to your SATA, data, and power connectors, two 5.25-inch bays for optical drives, fan controllers, displays, or storage drives, as well as an additional drive cage for even more storage. I've bought this case 3 times over the last 12 years, and the one for this build may very well be the last time because these have been phased out. I actually got lucky buying this one because they've been out of stock for a while, but I was randomly checking it for weeks after David asked for it, and by some miracle, a single one came back in stock on Amazon brand new for $100. That's the original MSRP, which is crazy because products this old generally trend in the opposite direction, especially brand new. You know, they become super expensive once they're out of production and third-party sellers get a hold of them and scalp them. But yeah, that's a brief explanation as to why I love this case so much and why it's near and dear to me. Sorry for getting carried away. I'm just super stoked that I did get to build this for David. Potentially this could be my last time building in one, at least brand new, and be able to share it with you all. I also got a bracket and a USB-C panel to populate one of the 5.25 bays in this case. This modernizes it a bit since USB-C ports weren't even a thing when the HAF XB came out, so getting this is going to give David some front side USB-C ports and make use of that header on the motherboard that would otherwise go to waste. Alright, let's take a look at the build summary and price breakdown, which this build comes in a bit under $1,300 before tax. And a lot of these prices you could find throughout the year with some patience and deal hunting, except for that RTX 4070 Super, which again was not a replicable price at all. But say you wanted to use this build list as a template, you can easily move things around and make changes to fit a more normal priced 4070 Super in, especially if you're okay with used parts. For one, you can't even get the HAF XB Evo anymore, so feel free to pick any case that you want to use. There's plenty of really good ones out there that comes completely pre-populated with fans for around 80 bucks. The case will likely have USB-C ports in the front as well, so you won't need the bracket and USB-C panel that I spent money on for this build. Simply doing that frees up some money and gets you just shy of $600 for the graphics card, which is more than enough to pick up a used 4070 Super on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, or OfferUp. Here's a time lapse of the build sequence, which again was a pleasure to build in. Hands down, one of my favorite cases to work with because of how accessible everything is. And that's really due to them designing this case to also be an open test bench once all the side panels are off. I'll let this play out, followed by some glamour shots of the completed system. Alright, now let's take a look at how the system performs. David is going to be primarily gaming at 1440p, so I tested everything with that resolution. But I was also curious to see how this build would do in 4K since I rarely ever test 4K. The 4070 Super is not, I don't think it's classified as a 4K card, but I think it could handle it at some games. So I wanted to check that out as well as to make that 4070 Super sweat a little bit. Everything was pretty much left at stock. I enabled PBO, but didn't touch any of the settings beyond that. The graphics card is running at stock and the Team Group kit was set to their rated 6000 Expo. So let's take a look at some of the gaming performance that David can expect out of his new rig after years of gaming on an i7 6700K and GTX 970. I think it's pretty safe to say that the performance uplift David is getting will be a night and day difference. Even the 4K performance is way better than what he's probably getting right now on his i7 6700K and GTX 970. But more relevant for his use case, The 7500F and the 4070 Super performs very well at 1440p, with room to get even higher frame rates than what I was showing off if the graphics settings were tweaked and if tech like DLSS and FrameGen is enabled. I tested with those off because I like to show raw performance before any black magic is added, but it's up to David if he prefers those on or off. He actually doesn't even really know what DLSS and FrameGen is because he's never owned a graphics card new enough to even use them, so I'm sure he's going to be happy with this build either way. I'm really glad that he asked me to do this build because had he not requested the HAF XB case, I wouldn't have gone looking for it and stumbled upon with maybe one of the last remaining new units available at a reasonable price. I almost wanted to keep this for myself because I'm a collector of cases with handles. But at the end of the day, I'm happy to use it to make a build for a friend who will put it to good use and thoroughly enjoy it, rather than have it sitting in the corner of my studio collecting dust. I'm just sad that Cooler Master never revisited this and gave it a much deserved refresh for the modern times. I would have loved to actually see one in a micro ATX form factor, you know, just a little bit smaller than this, but still with the same rugged handles, dual chamber, horizontal motherboard layout. I've been wanting a version like that since pretty much the entire existence of this case. But Cooler Master is kind of doing whatever it is that they're doing now. I haven't really been a fan of a lot of their newer designs, but it's all subjective, and maybe it's my tastes that are weird and not marketable for the masses. But alright, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Hope you all enjoyed and found this either useful or entertaining in one way or another. Let me know down in the comments below your overall thoughts on this build, and if you have ever built in this legendary case before, or if you've ever owned it. Some of the younger or newer people into the PC building space may have never even seen this thing before, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how it compares to modern cases. Do you think this design still holds up well, or do you think it's a relic that should be left in the past? I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you as always for watching and for continuing to support the channel. Thank you to the channel members and the super gifters for their above and beyond support. As always, be safe out there, and I'll see y'all down in the comments as well as the next stream and or video. Bye.